welcome to Skate 3. This game is actually kind of old.
Top of the morning to you laddies, my name is Jacksepticeye. Welcome to Skate 3.
Skate 3 released in 2010, though if you go onto the Xbox storefront, it will say that it came out in 2014. This is because they decided to reprint it after how much it blew up on YouTube thanks to the hilarity of Hall of Meat, the mode where you throw yourself into oncoming traffic and off of tall buildings to rack up points. YouTubers like PewDiePie and Jacksepticeye popularized the game, introducing it to a wider audience and making the game cement itself in the Hall of Fame of best skate games ever made, depending on who you ask, closely followed by the games that came before it in the franchise. It truly was revolutionary, ditching the button control scheme that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater had and switching it for the Flick It system, where you'd instead move the joysticks to perform different flip tricks. Flick up and down and you'd perform an ollie. The game somewhat required you to have prior knowledge of skating to know how to do more elaborate tricks like tray flips, but if you didn't have this knowledge, the game would teach you the basics at skate school and the more elaborate tricks were in the tricks guide. The way you flick the joystick is how you move your feet in real life to perform tricks. This was truly a game for skaters, and if the control scheme didn't give it away, then the array of pro skaters that were in it did. You had the likes of Danny Way, Darren Navarrete, Rob Dyrdek. Hell, even Coach Frank was played by a pro skater turned actor Jason Lee. It was a game by skaters, for skaters, and people that wanted to get into skating, but didn't really know where to start. So, 10 years down the line, what the fuck happened? What is this? Where are all of the textures? Why did they add microtransactions to the pre-alpha before literally anything else? All they care about is money. I say all of this as someone who's in the pre-alpha and has done pretty much everything there is to do in it. No, I'm not leaking anything as I don't really want to be sued into the ground, thank you very much. I'm just saying this because I think it adds a bit of context to the video. I love skateboarding along with the Skate franchise as a whole, and the pre-alpha of Skate filled the hole that was left in me from not being able to play Skate 3 on the PS5 because the bastards at Sony never made it backwards compatible. It's such a shame seeing the game in its current state because, whilst yes, I know that they're still developing it, they're taking forever to actually add anything, and they're focusing on all of the wrong things. Completely neglecting the playtesters by not listening to a single thing they say in the forums about X, Y, and Z not working. Admittedly, a lot of it is just whining about the smallest of things that definitely will be added to the game later on in the development process. But I agree that it's annoying as fuck because they're taking their sweet ass time with it, which is scary because the game is supposed to be available to everyone at some point this year. I'm banking on it not being a full release and just the beta because, I mean, there's so much missing from it in terms of gameplay and visuals, which is baffling because the game has been in development for 5 years. In comparison, the original Skate took about 2 to 3 years to develop, and that's when they were still inventing things like the Flick It system and learning how the physics engine worked with the skateboards and players, etc., you know, all of that stuff. Was it a glitchy mess? Yes. Were Skate 2 and 3 also glitchy messes? Also yes, but that's what was charming about them. The community embraced these glitches, spawning memes like the Backwards Man launch glitch and sharing videos made by people like Helix Snake, where they'd break the game with these glitches. Sure, they were buggy, but A, you'd have to go out of your way to perform these glitches, and B, the rest of the game was polished, both in terms of gameplay and visuals. Skate, the new one, not the old one, I know it gets a little bit confusing, is 5 years into development and still has trees that look like Roblox assets, literally made up of about 5 shapes. 1 shape for each year that it's been in development. Sure, you can blame COVID for some of the development time being lost because they couldn't go into the studios, etc, etc, but that wasn't actually for as long as people make it out to be. I was in college, high school to you Americans, during COVID, starting my courses online and then having physical lessons on campus later in the year when we were given the go-ahead by the government. That's a topic for another day, because if you're British, you'll know how much of a shit show that actually was. My point is, if I could do coursework in person physically at my college during COVID, why the fuck couldn't you develop the games? You can make assets at home on Blender or Maya or whatever you use on a Zoom call with your project manager. It doesn't necessarily require you to be physically in the studio. I just kind of feel toyed with, messed about, really. This game was meant to be the next big thing for the franchise, but they've spent too long focusing on things like the storefront and making the game visually appealing to kids because it's free to play, meaning it's going to drive in a bunch of Fortnite kids that would rather play live service games because they're so overstimulating, having something new all the time. I know this is really ironic coming from the guy whose main content focus is Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, but hear me out. All of the Skate games up until this point have been pretty gritty. Sure, Skate 3 was a lot brighter and unrealistic with locations like the Megapark and the University District as a whole, you know, being able to jump the shark, that kind of stuff, but it was gritty where it had to be, like in the Industrial District. Hell, we can even skate a war memorial based on the one in Berlin, giving the game a sort of dark comedic value. As it stands at the moment, Skate doesn't have that. The map seems very bright and full of color, and from the trailers, we can tell that they're trying to appeal to kids by making it look like a fucking play park. I mean, for God's sakes, they're constantly showcasing the monkey bars and this new parkour function, which I don't think is inherently bad, as it opens up the map a hell of a lot more, because you can scale buildings and easily reach different places that you'd probably have to build to in the older entries. But do they have to put this much of a focus on this? If I wanted to play a parkour game, I'd go and play Mirror's Edge. The only place you could really argue is a quote-unquote dark and gritty environment is the renovated church, because it's sacrilegious to the Lord and disrespectful to Christians and all of that shit, basically. It just aesthetically feels nothing like the other entries in the franchise. It's way too sterile, even in the areas that are meant to be more industrial and thematically darker. You know it's bad when Fortnite does dark, gritty environments better than Skate. Finally, it's time to talk about something that I'm sure a lot of people will bring up when discussing the direction of the game, and that's whether or not the game has gone woke. As someone who's part of the community and has a lot of friends that are also in the community, I think it's safe to say that we don't give a fuck about representation in games like Skate, especially when you're turning pandering to minorities into a marketing ploy. Some of you might have seen Flippy's video. In fact, he's the one that actually inspired this video, but he mentions the fact that because clothes aren't gender specific, which is a good thing by the way, I'm not complaining about that, it means that everyone can buy a piece of clothing they want, meaning EA makes their wallets fatter because most of these cosmetics that don't look like complete shit and actually allow you to express yourself to the extent that you want to are locked behind a paywall. I get it, the studio has to earn money one way or another, but the way that they're doing it is almost predatory, basically screaming, hey kids, remember, if you don't buy skate bucks to get these cool clothes, you're gonna look like a broke bitch compared to your friends. You don't want that, do you? They're invoking FOMO to make money, which is just fucking gross. As much as skating is about expressing yourself, it's mainly through the way that you skate and the flourishes that you put on your tricks rather than the way you dress. If they're that worried about self-expression through clothing, they'd bring back the custom graphic stuff so we can make unique cosmetics and stand out in the crowd of Joe skaters. But that just about does it for this video. As someone who's grown up with the series, starting with Skate 3 and going back to the older games to see what they were like and how far the game has come since its first iteration, it's painful to see the franchise be killed by corporate greed, which is really ironic because the lore of this game, if you can even really call it that, is supposed to be sticking it to the man, going against the returning Mongo Corp in this head-on skater versus corporate battle, just like Skate 2. The only thing is, it's nothing like Skate 2 or any of the other Skate games, and I don't mean that in a good way. Sure, it's cool that they're adding new features like all of the off-board stuff, but it's so far detached from the original games of the series that it feels like something completely undeserving of the Skate title. Hell, even the original logo isn't anywhere to be seen in the game or trailers yet. They'll bring back Mongo Corp from Skate 2, but not the original logo? Sure, they'll keep saying their slogan, still working on it, you know, we're working on it, all that shit, but it feels like zero work has actually happened in the past few months in terms of gameplay and polishing things in time for the game exiting the alpha stage at some point later this year. I'm sorry, but this isn't a Skate game. It has skating in it, sure, but it's nothing like the other games in the franchise at all, other than the control scheme and brand partnerships. In short, fuck EA for ruining everything that I love.